Coming up on this episode of Nothing to Bring.
Unsurprisingly, we talk about the white paper, Every Child Achieving and Thriving, with a special focus on alternative provision. Check we have done our homework and talk about Tourette syndrome.
I'm Matt Morris.
I'm Sarah Johnson.
And we have nothing to bring. Nearly there. So, welcome to our next episode of Nothing to Bring podcast. It's going to be quite an education heavy one this time, I think, just because we have the white paper that has been released and there's quite a few bits to kind of churn through, I'd say.
I've had some complaints about it being too educational, that
podcast.
Yes, that some of my friends say they switch off when it comes to the education bit and they much prefer it when we're talking about the geeky stuff.
Well, should we stick to the geeky stuff to begin with then?
Yeah, we can do. What have you been up to this week?
So it's been half term. Now, one of the things you said to me at the end of the last podcast was that I was to have a bit of a rest and I was to build some Lego. So I did. So in fact, my son did a bit of this. I keep
did someone else do your homework?
Well, he did it as well, but we were all building Lego together, so we're building different sets all at once. But so this is the piece that was built this week, which is the new Speed Champions DeLorean. So I've got the original tiny one of these, which came out about, I don't know, maybe 12 years ago or so. And then this is the one that came out the 1st of January and was sold out on day one of release. And then I think a few more of them come out, but I pre-ordered it so that I got it. And it's really cool because you can also change the wheels so that it becomes Back to the Future 2, so it's in hover mode. But you have to completely change it. So I've kept it as that one. You get Doc and Marty.
Are you going to display it?
Yeah. I've got into the idea of buying those little display boxes which have a bit of a thing behind them, like some theming. So I may display a few pieces with that. But yeah, it's a cool build. It's a nice little build actually. It's got some really cool little features to it. So that's pretty good. Otherwise, I've been fixing toilets, plumbing in dishwashers, and repainting bathrooms.
Do you feel very manly?
I'm not a DIYer. I'm really not.
You are, because you've just listed a whole host of things that you've done. It's like when I say I'm not a runner, but yet I run.
Oh, that's not true, because you are a bit of a runner and you really enjoy your running. You're really into it. I think that's what makes you a runner.
I'm not very good at it, though, if that helps. But that's a lot of things that I really enjoy that I'm not very good at. I can run 5 kilometres, and I try and do that once a week at least at the local park run. Although I didn't do it this week because I was having a shower leak instead. I probably needed you to come round and sort out the shower.
Maybe. I'm into my plumbing now. But the other thing I did, and I wasn't sure how true this was, so I decided I'm going to do it. And there are lots of videos on the internet, on YouTube, about getting the hard drives out of skyboxes. So if you own any of the old, the sort of the rounded front Sky Plus HD boxes, they've got hard drives in them. And if you strip them down, you can get free hard drives. So this is a 500 gig hard drive that is one of 2 that I got from 2 different HD boxes that I just picked up at the tip when I was dropping off some other bits of junk that I didn't need anymore.
Can you put them in a computer then?
Yeah, so they're just Saturday. You can plug them into a computer. You can reformat them. You can put them into a PC. You can use them if you've got a dock. You can actually dock them and use them into your PC as well. I've done none of this. I'm just told you can do it on YouTube, and people.
You've already changed your career path of being a plumber this week to also be a complete kind of techie geek. Might be a step too far.
I was always a techie geek. I'm now a techie geek who plumbs in some things as well, until it goes wrong, because I'm pretty sure I'm just holding back water in many places in my house for a good week or 2, and eventually it's all going to go in one hit. If it gets me through to Easter and I can fix everything properly, there you go. That's the dream.
So what have I been up to this week? I've actually written a list because I worked last week as per kind of normal. I didn't have a break, but I caught up with Baz, who is my artist in residence, to finish off a folktale story. That was really good. We started our conversation with me saying, I don't think we've got much to do now. And then we had lots and lots to finish off when we started chatting about finishing off the folktale story. But I've got another folktale story that is in the final stages of moving towards self-publication, which is really exciting. That's called The Mouse and the Sun, Little Mouse and the Sun. I'm looking forward to that. I also was interviewed by a writer, Caro Giles. Everything really, being a mum, having children with special needs, and the kind of challenges around that. And I did lots of training for people at the Violence Reduction Unit on neurodiversity and training on adaptive teaching. And then my week ended with an MRI scan for my youngest, little Zed. And she has to go under general anaesthetic for it because she's little, and that's always quite upsetting. And they said that she would be really tired afterwards, and she wasn't at all. She was bouncing off the walls as per normal. Why not?
Get that energy out.
She already had an unnatural sleep, so she was up for running around and being an absolute loon. Yeah, so it's quite a busy week.
Have you done anything geeky though this week?
I finished The Death of Stalin. I finished that night before last. Oh, I tell you what I have done. This is geeky. I've just realised. Just came to me. I went for a run yesterday, and I ran past a house, and I noticed in their garden they had ducks. Beautiful ducks. They were bright blue, iridescent feathers. And I thought, I really want to knock on the person's door and ask if they've got any feathers. But I couldn't quite work out where the garden connected to the house. So I didn't want to just knock on random doors. And I also thought that's a little bit weird to do that, going, hi, I collect feathers. Can I have some of your duck feathers? So instead, I did the next kind of weird thing to do, which was post a message on the Facebook village group going, hi, I run past your house. Can I have some feathers? And they are on there, and they're going to collect some feathers for me. So that is probably the most geekiest thing I've done this week, was ask random people that I've never met before and for their feathers.
How was that received by random people?
Yeah, they loved it. Well, I think they do. They were really polite. They were like, yeah, we'll look out for some. We'll collect some for you.
Oh, that's good.
I asked about the name of the ducks. No, they were really, really supportive and really lovely about it. I think when you say to someone, I really like your ducks, if they have ducks, if you just say it and they don't have ducks, that's kind of weird.
I mean, that's strange if they haven't, but...
Yeah, I really like your ducks. What are you talking about? No, they took it really positively because people like it when you're interested in things that they like. It's not like it costs any money to just kind of gather up some feathers that they naturally shed. So at some point, or molt, I think might be the better phrase. I don't think I've had time to do anything geeky, apart from just literally finish watching The Death of Stalin. Thank you, DC Bradshaw. I have done that. The thing that I have done as well is I've got future people for our podcast.
You have indeed, yes.
Yeah, so I've got...
Go on.
How many people? I've got 3 people who are lined up with dates to come and be interviewed, which I'm quite excited by. And I really value their time as well, and that they're happy to do it. I think they're happy to do it. We'll see when they come on. They might be deeply unhappy, but feel that...
Are these people those who get bored at the education stuff?
No.
And just want the geeky stuff?
No, they're not people that listen. I don't think... James Hanscom doesn't listen. I'm pretty sure Richard Clutterbuck doesn't listen. But DC Bradshaw does listen. So there is at least one listener to the event. But James Hanscom tried to listen and he got bored within moments. Wasn't his thing. So, it'd be great to interview him because he will have no idea the format and the remit of the group. Hopefully he'll be pleasant about it and will enjoy it regardless. Hopefully. But they're all geeky. So that was my viewpoint, was to invite geeky people on. You were set homework to get geeky people on. Did you manage or not quite this week?
I wasn't set homework to get... I was set homework to build Lego, which I did. I mean, I think you'll find that my contribution to this is to edit badly and get it on. Because the whole part of the project, actually the editing is fine. And editing an episode together is pretty good because we use Riverside. Riverside has AI built into it. We don't produce content with AI, but the AI really helps to do some of the editing for you. It takes out some of the fluffs and the gaps. It takes out the ums and the ahs.
Just to prove that we don't use AI, here are some of my handwritten notes from reading the white paper earlier.
Exactly. But the bit that I find grueling is the kind of the YouTubey bit, because you've got to write stuff which makes the algorithm find you and appealing to other people.
Yeah.
And that I find quite challenging. I've got a bit of a format now.
Need to move on to TikTok as well. I know so I'm going to be taking responsibility for that, aren't I?
I feel I'm too old for TikTok.
I'm too old for TikTok. But that's what my oldest daughter says, that we need to be on TikTok. So she got 400 views for just her face for a couple of minutes. So I figure our faces will get the same amount of views at least. Well,
if she can run our TikTok for us, I think that's the dream, isn't it?
If you send videos, I don't think she would mind doing that.
There you go. Let's get her to run our social media.
Yeah, she'll be fine with that. She's really good at that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's her age group, isn't it? And
of course.
We don't do anything on Facebook with this because it's not the right audience, is it? But YouTube, TikTok, we do sometimes put shorts on Instagram as well, don't we?
We do. Yeah. I'm not glued to my phone in the way that I was in the past. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, where I'm not as into social media as I was in the past because I find it really divisive. In fact, this is an experience I've had this week. Because I've been using YouTube far more than I ever have in the past, even when I was younger, because I'm putting this content onto YouTube and I'm writing the bits around each episode. Because I'm using it more, I find that I'm on there a little bit more. And so I find I dip into videos a lot. And a weird thing I've experienced this week is how watching videos has affected my enjoyment of things negatively. So, for example, I think I said previously that I bought Thunderhawk, which is, for those people who know the 80s cartoon M.A.S.K, Thunderhawk is one of the vehicles. It's Matt Tracker. He's the leader of M.A.S.K. It's his vehicle. Well, I actually went and bought the 4 new variants of the M.A.S.K toys. So there's a company called Loyal Subjects who have released and are releasing a new range of the M.A.S.K toys that were out in the 80s, which are easy to get hold of, but are really expensive, especially if you want a decent quality version of the 80s toy. And if you want it boxed, triple the price. You can get new toys which are based on the original models, and they've retooled everything and they are identical. Size, shape, they are identical. Even down to the mechanisms are the same. And the problem with some of the mechanisms being the same is they're as clunky as they were in the 1980s, right? But what people have done is they've started to do these unboxing videos and talk about the poor quality of these things.
I wondered where it was going to lead to not enjoying
Yeah.
it. But also,
But had I not watched those...
Why are you watching unboxing videos?
I'm not. I don't watch unboxing videos per se. What I did was I read something. I'd ordered these toys. And when I say toys, these are going to be display pieces. They're not going to be, although my children and I have opened them, we've had a mess around with them, they're going to be display pieces pretty much. So the functionality of them isn't as important as it might be to somebody who wants to use them as toys. But then I don't think these are intended as toys. I think these are intended as display pieces, nostalgia pieces. I read that people were getting upset about the quality of some of these pieces. So I went down a bit of a rabbit hole, and I've got these things on order and they haven't arrived yet. Yeah, I'm going down a rabbit hole where I'm reading and hearing about them not being of good quality. And then when they arrive and I open them, I kind of see their point. But had I not watched those videos, had I not read that, I wouldn't have noticed. I would have picked them up and gone, do you know what? These are a lot like they were in the 80s. Some of the weird things, like some of the stickers, are about 1 millimeter too big and don't quite fit the vehicles. That's really what they were like in the 80s.
It's irritating. There's no need for that.
But that's how they've always been. So the experience you get when you open the box is no different to the experience you had as a child, with some of the pieces. But it's lessened my experience because I did that. Had I not done that, I don't think I would have opened them and I wouldn't have cared less.
I wonder if your homework then should be this week that you're not allowed to watch unboxing videos.
And typically I don't watch unboxing videos. I don't feel it's a sort of a thing. Do you know what I thought I would do? I was going to make an unboxing video of some of those vehicles to kind of post an anti-perspective. Sorry?
Not on this channel.
Why not? It'll drive traffic in.
Will it? Will it really? I feel a bit slow this week, I think, with traffic for people watching us.
If I made a M.A.S.K video, I could guarantee it would get traffic currently because it's a big trend, those toys on YouTube.
You need to put it under the kind of search engine optimization. Just put M.A.S.K, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Do that. We've talked about it. We can do that.
Anyway, that's the sort of rabbit hole I went down this weekend with YouTube, or this week rather, with YouTube, which has lessened my experience. And there's a couple of other things like that as well that I've been watching and kind of caring too much about what people say on YouTube videos, and it then impacting my enjoyment of something else when I just shouldn't have bothered.
No, I don't. You know what I like doing? This is not really a geeky interest, but it's one of my favourite things to do, is having a look at reviews of things, of places, hopefully of kind of natural scenery, and seeing where they've only given them like 1 star. So, for example, there's some cave hotels in Turkey, and the 1-star reviews criticise it for not having Wi-Fi. I just love that sort of thing. And there's some beautiful, beautiful places in Yorkshire, fairly obviously. And again, just looking at the 1-star reviews of just slating the countryside, it's always raining, it's rubbish and things like that. So that provides me extra enjoyment, because I just don't understand why people even go to places.
You've got a good, healthy balance to it there, though. You're going into it with the right reasons.
I'm going for it for silly reasons, and I like to read it out loud and with the family and go, look, this is what we've got to look forward to.
Absolutely. Shall we?
about looking forward to things.
Yeah.
Do you like the segue there? That was beautiful.
It was really good. And I was going to say, at the risk of losing people at this point, this is the jump.
This is the jump. Guys, if you want to sign out now, sign out now.
Yeah.
We won't
see you guys in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah. So, gosh, I've got so many notes on this and it's difficult to kind of think about where I might start. I suppose it's about the idea that the new white paper has been published, Every Child Achieving and Thriving. It's a very long paper and I've been working all day today. One thing that I did, which was really helpful, is I put the white paper into Notebook LM and asked it to do a podcast for me. So I got to listen to other people pretend to be talking about something. That saved me loads of time because I was travelling between sites.
Forget about that. I forget that exists. It's
so helpful.
Superb. Yes.
It's such a good way of consolidate. Obviously, they're really happy about it, the podcast. They've got no critical eye. They're all like, yay, this is great. And then when you look at it more deeply, you're like, is it really as good as what you're saying, AI? But it's helpful to kind of organise thoughts. And I've also read a couple of blogs. So I read Hughes and Mark Enser's blog as well, because they had particular lenses of it. So Mark Enser took the lens of inclusion as an organising principle. Dr. Hailey Hughes looked at the idea of continual professional development and staff development, kind of continuation, teacher training and so on. So right, let me get my head around this. I'm really particularly interested in certain bits, and one bit is the new inclusive mainstream fund of 1.6 billion over 3 years directly to early years schools and colleges. That was one thing. The other bit that I was particularly interested in was the enhanced monitoring of pupil movement between schools. So the argument in the paper is there's a lack of visibility of why children are moving from place to place to place. And that in particular with children with special educational needs and disabilities, SEND puts them at risk, and having a kind of dashboard where they're looking at that information more in depth. I think that's fascinating. I wonder how they're going to do that, because whilst we talk about dashboards, the integration of management information systems and dashboards are clunky at best. You know, you've got lots out there in the market, but schools might be working on one management information system, local authorities on a completely different one. Do they talk to each other? Sometimes, maybe, possibly. You've got Liquid Logic, you've got Synergy, you've got Bromcom, you've got lots of different ones. What's the dashboard going to look like? And how are we going to make sure that schools are inputting that information when they're directing a child off-site, for example?
Can I be devil's advocate throughout all of this?
You may. I give you permission, Mr. Matt
Okay,
Morris.
so here's my question. How's that going to improve outcomes in schools?
The thing is, you've got to know what the picture looks like. And then when you're looking at the data and you uncover different things that are happening. So let's say, for example, that we find, and this is probably going to be the case, more black children on free school meals are more likely to be directed off-site into AP. Right. Okay, we know that. What does that mean? What do we do? How do we address that? And that's where the key comes in, because actually if we're not using that data to be more mindful and careful about what we're doing, then it's not going to make a difference at all. It will just be monitoring. Like, for example, we monitor part-time timetables as a local authority. Great, we've got that information. What do we do about it? And you might be able to do something on a very kind of specific level of one person. But if you've got patterns and trends, how are we addressing that as a system? And I think from Mark Enser's point of view, that idea of inclusion as an organising principle around curriculum and so on, and the teacher training entitlement where SEND is part of the continual professional development programme, that might help. But we already have inclusion and SEND as part of our training, but we don't necessarily utilise it particularly well, or we don't know how to embed it. So I wonder how that will look different. I don't know about you, Matt, but when I was training to be a teacher, we had half an afternoon on special needs. That was it. So it needs to be more integrated, more specific, but also, you know, does that mean that we are adding to the training? Because we need to make sure that we have a good understanding about child development, pedagogy, special educational needs, but special educational needs is hugely diverse. I know that NASEN does lots of training, which is free for teachers and anyone that works in education in England, because I do some of those workforce development training sessions, and I think they're very good and very positive. So who's going to undertake that work to make sure that it's fit for purpose, but actually makes a real difference for the children and young people that we want to be within our schools. You've got that. And then they've got what's called an expert at hand service. So £1.8 billion to create banker specialists. So send teachers, your SALT, your OT, your educational psychologists. Again, that's great. But that's going to take a while to come to fruition. And the reason why it's going to take a while to come into fruition is because we don't have enough speech and language therapists. We don't have enough educational psychologists coming through the door, or occupational therapists. They're like, oh, what's gold dust? So difficult to find. So it has to be about how do we integrate training to make these lucrative careers where people want to be part of those banker specialists and they don't want to go into the private sector, for example. So we have to make it something that people want to go into. And there's other bits, isn't there, that people, to go to university now costs a fortune. I don't know if I'm going to recommend going to university to my older daughter or my younger children as they come through. It costs a fortune.
And that's a conversation we've had. Is university a viable route for our children in the future? Just going back on that idea, and the reason I asked the question is, and you sort of covered it in what you said in response, was you take the trends and then it's what you do about it. My worry is that layered through this document, the problem is it's 120 pages, and in those 120 pages it poses more questions than it answers, and so there's a lot of we're going to do this, or we have an ambition of doing that, and in part it reads like a green paper rather than a white paper. But as you go through those 120 pages, what you kind of go is, well, okay, but unless we get that right there, doing this means nothing. And it's just going back to what you said, or what we said there, unless we are able to identify the trends in order to use that information in a really positive way to impact on the children, what is the value in doing it? Now, yeah, great. A lot of money there invested in inclusion. But when you break that down, how much is that really per school? We're talking tens of thousands per school. We're not really talking huge sums of money for the entire system. And then when you look at
schools more responsible for inclusion,
it is.
Well, that's my kind of sense.
Absolutely. And there are bits hidden within this document that I think people might not have picked up on. So, for example, if we go directly from that, money going into schools, one of the things that it talks about is every school taking part in sort of a local group, like a mandatory working group locally, a locality group. Sounds like stuff we did in the past that we moved away from. But it says within that, when you get into the body of the text, and this is page 56 of the document, that we propose requiring all schools to pool a minimum level of funding to support needs fairly across their group. Well, that's going back to old-fashioned local authority pooling to pay for your early help service, which some authorities still do. So how is that really any different to what currently happens? And a lot of that is ineffective. So essentially what we're saying is, or what is being said is, there's going to be a bit more money for everybody, not a lot, but ultimately you're going to be pulling that back into a service that everybody's going to be forced to be part of. So does that benefit anybody in the long run, or are we just regurgitating old policies?
I think there's some principles there that I really kind of align to. So there's lots around the principles of localised support and the kind of acknowledgement that children might be travelling from local authority to local authority and being bused to different places to their special school that might be giving them the support they need. There's bits around that I think are untenable in terms of cost for transport, but also it marginalises and isolates children with special educational needs. They're no longer part of their community. So from that perspective, I think schools being able to utilise that kind of funding, but I suppose the devil's in the detail, isn't it? So actually what is this going to look like in practice, and how are local authorities going to organise themselves? Because quite a lot of them already have specialist advisory teachers. I know Southend does, I know Redbridge does, and they're kind of deployed throughout. Lots of people, so local authorities such as Redbridge, which actually buck the trend nationally, so most of their schools are local authority schools, not academies, that have more of a pooling of resources. And I think that for some degree, I think that works really, really well. But it has to be a local authority that has a really good understanding about the demographics of their community. But also, there's a kind of emphasis here in the paper about councils working with integrated care boards to commission those local professionals. And again, that's great, but the professionals are hard to find. We have to make sure that there's a through route through A-levels, university, and then back into the integrated care boards, local authority to be able to do this work. I think in principle, I'm very supportive of it. And I think It feels like a model that I've seen in Sweden, where they have that kind of central kind of allocation of resources that can then pile out. But then that feels very municipality based or local authority based. But actually what they're saying is a bit of both worlds, isn't it? We want schools to be more responsible, but also at the same time, we want all schools to be part of a trust, including those created by a local authority or an area partnership. Well, what do you want? Do you want schools to be more responsible? Do you want trusts, or do you want local authorities being more responsible? And I wonder where those layers of accountability and governance might come into play.
Yeah. So we've got old policy coming back there, which is having interest groups, local authorities, and producing or creating their own multi-academy trusts. Again, old policy coming back into play. That was largely dismissed because it was kind of seen as unworkable in the past. But then you've also got what we talked about last time out. We talked about inclusion bases and all schools having an inclusion basis. I think the thing we said, the absolute imperative is you've got to have a local plan. Well, this kind of starts to put together the, if you like, the legs of a local plan by creating these localized groupings. I think that gives the thing that we said you absolutely need for this to be successful, especially when you're saying, right, well, we want local authorities to be doing this thing and we want trusts to be doing this thing and schools to be doing that. Who's bringing all of that together? And there is a worry in this that I have, which is, again, it feels like Rise all over again. It feels a little bit like there will be champions who will come from certain multi-academy trusts in order to lead on these things at local level. And if we do that, I think we'll have got it wrong. Because if we make it trust-led, trusts have to be a massive part of it, but so do local authorities, so do standalone schools, whether they are local authority or single academy trusts. And obviously, this talks about all single academy trusts becoming part of a multi-academy trust, because that's one of the key drivers here. This itself, this locality model is old policy. It's old Labour school behaviour and attendance partnership policy, which was off the back of the very last thing that the previous Labour government did, was brought in SBAPs, school behaviour and attendance partnerships, and then very few local authorities actually implemented them. And those that did have mixed success with them. Now, I worked in a system where there were school behaviour and attendance partnerships, and it was very much this idea of pooling resources at a local level, and it was more to support challenging young people, reintegration into schools, and reducing exclusions was the driver. But you can see how it's been expanded to look at send reform as well. But there's a real health warning on that sort of approach, because where the drive there was to stop exclusions, what you ended up doing was just passing the problem around the locality and shift. Yeah, exactly. So there's a real health warning. Doesn't mean it can't be successful, but if you pin it too much on a benchmark of avoiding X or ensuring we never do this, you run the risk of taking something out of your toolkit and then the whole thing falling apart. And that's what happened with some of the school behaviour and attendance partnerships. Their target was 0 permanent exclusions. So instead of permanently excluding a child A ended up going to 4 different schools because they were moved from 4 different schools.
As well, and they never get the support they need. But also, you can direct a child off-site and the parent has no ability to counter that. Whereas at least if a child is excluded, a parent has a right to appeal against that decision. Now, I don't think that's perfect either, because I think it's like marking your own homework with governing bodies sometimes, but you've also got the independent review panel, which is independent. But they can't force you to take a child back. They can only suggest that you reconsider and look at it. I have known schools to take children back, though, which is quite interesting. But there's also that dilemma. By that point, the damage is already done, and they know they're not wanted in that school. They have spoken about preventative outreach in mainstream schools and that kind of time-limited assessment and reintegration, which is kind of what we're doing anyway. And I think there was already that sense check with the green paper, the Send an AP green paper, where we were doing that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 element, but also providing a specialist provision package. I suppose one of my concerns would be that we want local support, but we're talking about multi-academy trusts that might span over lots of different local authorities. So I wonder about who then who is accountable, who has the governance for that to actually make sure it is responding to a local need, not a trust need, but a local need?
I would say that some multi-academy trusts do that really, really well, especially where the multi-academy trust is in the AP and SEND sector. So where they've got special schools, where they've got alternative provision academies or alternative provision free schools, they may be working across multiple local authorities. And where that's the case, they have a really good commissioning relationship, or should have a really good commissioning relationship with those local authorities. So because they have that relationship, they tend to be able to respond to different needs of different local authorities really, really well. And I don't know if that's unique to those schools with specialist provisions. It's not something that has to be unique.
You know about, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's about how you build that relationship with the local authorities that you work with. There's, you could end up having less of a relationship with a local authority if you don't have that commissioning relationship with them, because that immediately opens the door to working in a different way with different authorities, because you're working with different funding bands, you're working with different priorities in terms of need. So what you might be doing in one local authority with a special school in terms of profile of pupils might be different to another local authority, because they've got multiple schools in multiple different trusts, but they're getting it right via their different schools in terms of their different pathways. So it's a complex picture. It doesn't mean it can't be done. It doesn't mean that you can't create. As I say, there are some trusts who do it really, really well because they respond to need and have those really great relationships. But I think all trusts need to have those great locality relationships and really focus on, for this to work, they've got to focus on locality over trust need, over, one of the big values has got to be about the community in which they serve.
Yeah, absolutely. And without that, that's where it's going to fail. So I'm excited. I'm interested. We've been waiting a long time for it. So it's out there in the open. I think we've been drip fed some kind of potential things, leaks throughout to sense check how we feel about them. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes to fruition. I want to talk about something else, which I hadn't actually planned to talk about. And I haven't even spoken to you about it, so it's just kind of fresh from here. So some of you may or may not know that I've got Tourette syndrome. And one of the things that, Matt, you and I spoke about was that I wasn't going to hide my tics. Anyway, some of you may have watched the film I Swear, which is based on Johnny Davidson and his kind of childhood growing up having Tourette's and the influence of it. It won awards yesterday, as I'm aware, at BAFTAs. Johnny obviously found it very difficult being at the awards, and he has coprolalia, which about 10% of people with Tourette's have, which is kind of directly means shit mouth, and it's the idea that you say inappropriate things. And I believe he used a racial term, and there was lots and lots of kickback from that about, oh, he must think that and must feel that.
And I heard an expert on the news this evening who said, and you will know better than I do in terms of Tourette's itself, but my understanding based on the things that I've heard and read is that sometimes those with Tourette's are surprised themselves by the things that happen or that come out their mouths.
It can work on different ways. So if you have Tourette syndrome, generally you have to have motor tics, which is your movement, and vocal tics as well. And one bit is what's called the premonitory urge. So the urge, the experience of, something is going to come out and it just comes out. Now, sometimes it's, I must not say this, I must not say this, I must not say it, and it comes out. So, for example, if you go to a children's party, you might say something that's particular about children and kind of contextual. I've been in a car with Johnny. We met up in London quite a long time ago now, must have been about 15 years ago, for a Tourette's meet. And us walking in London together was very difficult because when you're with somebody with Tourette's as well, it's more difficult to contain your tics. And I'm acutely aware that some of the things I may say are deeply offensive and often sexual. And I often wear earbuds, and I might be, because I find trains in particular overwhelming, but also if I see people of different ethnicities and race, I might say something that's inappropriate. I don't want to hear myself do it. I really, really struggle. I find that people are incredibly kind about me saying these things because I'm a woman. I think it's often a lot worse if you're a man for lots of different reasons. But I also know it leaves me vulnerable because I'm saying inappropriate things. And I think my heart goes out to Johnny because I know that he will feel absolutely mortified by the things that he said. And as I understand, he left the BAFTA Awards earlier. But also, the BBC response was to apologise for it. Just because it's a disability. And actually, to apologise for a disability feels deeply upsetting and deeply worrying. And we've probably worked with kids with Tourette's as well. And one of the things I've talked about with children with Tourette's is there's no shame, and not having that shame about something that you can't control. It's really, really difficult. So I was thinking about that. I know we didn't talk about talking about that, but actually all love to Johnny. And I hope that he has good people around him, because actually what some people have said is deeply abhorrent.
Yeah. And I mean, I have a particular view here, and there's two parts to this. You said about the apology. No, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it live. I've not watched it back. I'm aware that Alan Cumming, who was hosting it, actually came on and I think offered some sort of dialogue about how supportive or thankful, grateful that people are supportive of people with Tourette's. So that was a good starting point. Okay. I think what then happened was the BBC have immediately said, we're really sorry for airing it and not cutting it. Because the reality of live television, when it comes to something of this nature, not when it comes to things like, your breakfast live or your news, that's very controlled. But when it comes to things like award ceremonies, these things are usually on a delay. Even if it's 30 seconds, it could be 10 minutes.
A science person that's kind of doing it.
Yeah, because what people don't realise is that there will be lawyers at these things to ensure that the people who go on stage don't say the things. And if anybody needs any evidence of that, look at some of the Golden Globes clips of Ricky Gervais and him then talking about, and he says, I don't talk to the lawyer because I know what I can do or what I can't do. I've done it long enough that I know what I can and can't. But they still have lawyers backstage. And there will be lawyers there to say, you can say this, you can't say that. But that is why everything of this nature, which is a live kind of, whether it's an awards ceremony, whether it's concert, there will be a delay. And that gives producers the opportunity to blank out or to beep out, and they tend to silence rather than beep, because beeping highlights it, whereas silence might sound like it's a technical glitch. There's to silence anything which might be inappropriate, whether that's swearing, whatever. There was an opportunity here to silence that in the live broadcast, which would then have meant that we wouldn't have been in this. Now, that aside, I think that's the error. The error is allowing it to be heard because of the nature of the audience that could be watching it. But my real issue here is the way that certain people, including certain very famous actors, have negatively responded and have suggested something that isn't true. And there is one in particular who is out there saying this person said it because they believe it, and that is racist, absolutely false.
And it's outrageous to even kind of acknowledge that, and to even say that. It's outrageous. And I think what it does is it leaves someone who is particularly vulnerable because he has Tourette's, and he's put himself out there in terms of his story. He has been awarded a Queen's Honour because of his services to the community, which includes Black people as well. And I think that's what's kind of grating, because actually he will feel incredibly upset and devastated that he has said that. And he's, and I think there's lots of different elements there, but you shouldn't apologise for something that you can't help. I say that, I often say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Or, and sometimes I might hit the person next to me, I'm sorry. But that's my choice to make. It's not for someone else to be sorry on my behalf, I think. And actually what they could have also done, it would be unsurprising that somebody who's got a film about themselves having Tourette's, having a tic in that kind of high pressure environment, why wouldn't you have a conversation with Johnny and say, Johnny, we know you've got coprolalia, are you okay? What do you feel? How do you feel about this if we just kind of silence that so it's not heard and doesn't change the flow of the thing? Have the conversation. Actually, don't infantilise Johnny. He's old and big enough himself to have had that conversation. And why didn't they? Like, it's such an easy thing. And what they've done instead is they've made him vulnerable. And that's unacceptable.
Yeah, and this is a night of celebration for him.
Yeah.
And that has been ruined. Not by his actions.
No.
This is a celebration of understanding his needs, of understanding what he goes through, because it's been turned into a film, and that film was won an award. And it has now been used. It's been used against him. It's been weaponized against him because of people who have a real lack of understanding. And not just a lack of understanding, but a lack of willingness to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a conversation about this earlier. They are old enough, they're big enough. It is not a new thing to have that information to hand. And how long do we accept ignorance for around disability? It isn't okay. I remember, so years ago when I was diagnosed with Tourette's, it was after the birth of my first child. I used to tick all the time, really, really difficult. And I still tick loads, but controlled for certain different environments. My husband at the time played a video of Johnny, Paul Stevenson and Chopper Stewart. Stewart's unfortunately passed away. And he said, how are you different to those people? And it gave me a framework to understand why I was doing what I was doing, noises. I had quite incredible OCD as well. And I think that's it as well, is that Tourette's is so closely tied to obsessive compulsive disorder as well. And I think Johnny, Paul and Chopper Stewart have provided so much education for people that haven't understood why they might be behaving in a certain way. And it's worrying and it's upsetting. And I think what's been quite nice about on my Facebook is people have wrapped themselves around Johnny and have gone, we stand by you and we respect you. And this is actually a fact. So whilst these people who are ignorant saying, oh, he must be a racist, actually what it does is it further highlights that we've still got a lot of work to do. And that includes the children that we have in our schooling environments as well. And we need to keep on it. We need to keep on trying to bang the drum and make sure that people with Tourette's or other neurodivergent neurodiversity are supported within our school environments as well. I know we wasn't necessarily going to talk about that.
No.
Forgive me.
Really glad you have, because I have a real feeling about this. But interesting, the last thing you said there, which is about educating young people. I think that had I had a conversation about this with young people in school today, they would have been more supportive and more understanding than some of the high-profile A-list Hollywood actors who have just acted in the most irresponsible way.
Kids are great.
Kids understand. Kids listen. They understand. And I could have, in a special school today, I could have had this conversation with some children and they would have understood. And that's not to denigrate special school children, but I know that there were children who would have absolutely felt for this man because of the way he's now been victimised as a result of it.
Outrageous. Hey, my 4-year-old daughters know that there's twins at their nursery. They don't know the term autistic, but they know that those two children don't talk. And instead that they point to pictures and use signs. If my 4-year-olds get it and can understand and can empathise and use alternative modes of communication, then my goodness, an A-list of celebrities should be able to work it out.
Yeah.
I will guess.
If not, they've got the money to attend the lessons to learn, haven't they?
Just look on YouTube, mate. It doesn't even take long to do to educate yourself. The universe is full of information now. Go on TikTok, mate. Have a look. Watch the film, maybe, because actually that's what you were there for anyway. Watch the film, get yourself a bit educated, or look at some old BBC documentaries that Johnny did years ago.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
No,
right. That was my absolute kind of.
No, and do you know what? I'm glad you're talking there as if you've got on your soapbox about it, but I'm glad you did. I'm glad you raised it because it's really important. Because a large point of what we do on this is we talk about education, and this is about education. This is as educational a topic today as the white paper is. To be honest, it's more interesting than the white paper is. I mean, I think today I've sent a number of memes about the white paper.
You sent a lot of memes. You sent a lot of memes.
I've sent my favourite meme. So my favourite meme when something doesn't have a lot of substance is the bit from Jurassic Park where they are on the tour and they haven't seen any dinosaurs yet. And Jeff Goldblum, characters Ian Malcolm, knocks on the camera and says, there will be some dinosaurs on this dinosaur tour. So that's my favourite meme to use when there's a lack of substance in any educational document, which tends to be most documents that come out from the DFE. So,
my homework for you, Mr. Matthew Morris. Did you talk to your mum about me?
No, not yet.
Because you said you were going to say it.
That sounds like a really awkward part of a relationship conversation, is it? Have you spoken to your mum about it?
No, not yet. Have you spoken to your mum about us? Have you spoken to your mum? Okay, fine.
No, not yet. No, because we didn't actually travel this half term. Normally, we would sort of travel and see family members.
Yeah, and I would have seen
this half term, we didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I spent the week plumbing in toilets and dishwashers, and I've learned that with, you talked about YouTube and the information being out there. I've learned how to fix toilets this week.
From YouTube?
From YouTube.
Yeah. So I've been sewing hairbands and things like that, and I'll look on YouTube videos because someone's modelling it and showing me how to do it. But also, you can sew it down, you can stop it. It's beautiful direct instruction, isn't it?
Okay, this is something I saw today. It was one of is it Camille Cott, the skier, the British skier? She was interviewing one of the US skiers, and she sews her own headbands.
Yeah.
and knits headbands. That was I just
Does
saw
she
it
knit or
today.
does she crochet?
What's the difference?
Knitting is 2 needles.
Right.
Crochet is 1.
And your finger.
No, that was my needles. That was my imaginary needles.
What do you use? What, you just wave one needle round and it just magics together? You do it with your hand around the needle.
I don't crochet or knit. I can't do either.
So that was a pointless conversation then?
I liked it. Yeah, it was.
Okay, fine.
I sew my headbands. I sew very badly. I would like to set you homework of a mission, which is to not watch rubbish unboxing videos.
Well, don't worry, that's going to be easy. I'm not going to. I'm just really not going to bother.
I just realised I swore at you, by the way, because I've said 2, so I apologise. It wasn't my intention.
I didn't take it as swearing at all.
Sorry. Do I have homework? I finished Death of Stalin. I haven't done your homework about Nobody Wants This. I haven't finished that yet, just because I've been chocker, absolutely busy. So, did you want that to carry on, or did you want to give me homework?
Yeah, I mean, feel free. I've got something for you. It's a really weird, unique thing, but I want you to listen to song.
What's the song?
And
Are you going to make me a mixtape?
No, again, we're not there in our relationship yet. The song is, I really like Gracie Adams.
Okay,
I don't know if you know Gracie Adams.
No.
Okay, Gracie Adams, beautiful singing voice, really fantastic. So she's got a song called That's So True. It's one of the biggest songs last year. I want you to listen to that song because there's some interesting lyrics at the start of it that you'll go, oh. Yeah. And it only works for you.
Only works for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Okay. I will do that.
Yeah. Okay. You're going to go do that in a bit. Okay. Yeah. And I will carry on. I'm still on the Lego mission though, because I still do have another Transformer to build. And I've obviously got the Goonies set to get to at some point.
All right. Let me set you do another set then. That would be quite good. And your kids will enjoy helping you as well.
Yeah. Okay. So one of my lads is really big on it. I mean, he builds Lego sets in seconds. The speed he goes at is incredible, and I can't keep up with him. Whereas the other one likes to really take his time, a bit like me, and he'll put a set away and come back to it a few days later.
Okay.
So the older one wants to just finish it there and then, whereas the younger one wants to do it over time, and that's more like how it's a really good. And this is we talked about AFOL. Adult
fan of Lego.
Forget all that. It's just a really kind of relaxing thing to do.
Yeah. I might want to start doing I really like the flowers. My older daughter does a lot of the flowers and the Lord of the Rings ones. And I think let me focus on my my sewing, but I might buy some Lego for myself.
I think you should.
Flowers or the birds. I think there's bird sets as well, isn't there?
There's a Kingfisher set, which is fantastic.
Beautiful.
There's also, I know it's slightly different. It's in the same. There's a new otter set, which you might like.
Yeah, I would like that. Yeah, so maybe it's the animals and the birds. That would be quite fun, actually.
Yeah. Okay. That brings us to the end of another episode of the Nothing to Bring podcast. And so it's just for us to say.
I'm Sarah Johnson.
And I'm Matt Morris. And we have nothing
to bring.